So I finally finished this room off. It's taken longer than what it should have done or could have done. It hasn't taken that long in hours, it's just I haven't done the job every single day of the week. So it didn't go too bad actually, no major problems. The only struggle I had, a bit of a problem, if you remember, is the windowsill and that wall there on the inside the window. When I started with my scraper at the very beginning, by here, the paint was a bit flaky, and I didn't want to go through all the effort I did on the last few rooms where all the paint's fallen off. So I got some paint stripper and put it on the wall, scraped it off. But I think I've mentioned this in another video. There was that many layers of paint, about 7 different colours. There was pink, a lilac, a white, a cream, that the paint stripper only strips about 3 layers of paint at a time. But it makes it all mushy. So once you've started, you can't really back out of it, but it just makes a bit of a mess. So I had to do that and that and that. And then the windowsill itself had loads of layers of paint on it. I wasn't sure if it was gloss or whatever, so I thought I'd take that right back to wood. And then obviously it shone through the screw holes. All the filler that they used, or cork, whoever they used, went all mushy, so I had to scoop that out and then re-sand that and refill that and re-prime the whole wood. Also, they painted right up to the window on the rubber, on the plastic, so I spent ages scraping that back without having to damage the rubber or the window. So it's not perfect, the cutting in and the sanding and stuff. That dimple effect is because I used a foam roller. I didn't want to have brush marks on it. I'd rather that effect than brush mark effect. So it was a lot neater than what it was. I put the curtain poles up ages ago, like when I first moved in, probably February, before I painted. So that is dead center. Before it wasn't dead center. And then the one on the end, I'm not sure how far out I had to go and up I had to go, but I think there was old screw holes here and here. So I had to find a place where there wasn't any screw holes. So I had something to screw into and put wall plugs in. So now that's perfectly in the center. They're perfectly even out. It's perfectly level, and that's all good. There was a bit of cracking up the wall here, so I had to scrape that all out and fill that in. And I think that's about it. The skirting boards, it's been plastered loads of times before, so some of the skirting boards are thinner than others, where they've plastered like right on top of the skirting board instead of taking it off and putting new ones on. So I went around the whole room, I've sanded everywhere, I've scratched all the lumps and bumps off as much as I possibly can, realistically, like without making it a brand new room. The ceiling was quite good anyway, but I gave it a couple of licks of paint. Then I found a couple of bumps and stuff. I think over here, if I remember, I didn't wash out my roller and my paint tub, and I think I had loads of lumps in my paint. So the rule was always wash your roller and all your equipment every night. Don't put a cling film on or in a bag or leave it. People say they leave the rollers and leave the trays. No, wash it, because you get lumps in your paint and it'll ruin the whole ceiling. And it's quite a big ceiling really. I'm not sure, I can't remember the diameter of it, the size of it, I don't know, can't remember. But obviously that's a double bed and it's quite wide. There's plenty of room here. That wall wasn't too bad to do. So what I did was the ceiling, I rubbed everything down, filled everything, and I painted everything with white primer stroke undercoat from Dulux. Every room, every wall. I left that one till last. That one there is just normal Dulux, but the trade version in matte emulsion. The ceiling as well, Dulux matte emulsion, the trade version. The trade version is more expensive than the non-trade version, but it is better. It goes on thicker, so it covers more. It was a white undercoat anyway, so it didn't matter about covering up too much imperfection things underneath. But the trade one, I think if you put 2 coats of normal paint, this is done in 1 coat. So you're saving, even though it's more expensive, you will save. It's thicker, the opacity, the see-throughness of it is better. And it's got some vinyl stuff in it, so it does go on smoother. It doesn't dry out in the roller and it'll spread further. So you do get more out of the bucket than the non-trade version. That one there as well is the normal, so all that side is the normal, just matte. This wall here, as the door's there and you're going to come in and you're going to walk past it with your coat and your bag and your sleeves and things, I thought that's the part where it's going to be dirty with fingerprints and scuff marks. So that wall is some leftover paint from the stairs. It's the Dulux Easy Tough Wipeable. It's still a matte, it's still white, so it does feel like a matte, but it's like 10 times stronger and tougher than the normal paint, so you can get a sponge and wipe it down without it all coming off on your sponge. There's no need for that on the ceiling. It's more expensive, there's no need, you're not going to touch the ceiling. So that wall was that one. And then the last wall, that's Dulux. It's emulsion, but it's in silk. You can see the reflection on the wall there. I was going to do it in, you can go buy some special feature wall paint, but I couldn't find the colour blue in the feature paint I wanted. And then in the tough stuff paint, they didn't have the colour blue I wanted, or the right size. I think they got too big or too small, but it wasn't enough to do that size wall, or too much, I can't remember. But it was cheaper then to buy a smallish size tub of paint, but in the silk. So I didn't really want it shiny for, like, I don't like that reflection really, but it's the feature wall, so that's the colour it went. It wasn't too bad. I did do a couple of gentle coats, really watered down with cutting in. Rolling it, I think it took 2, but I think I might have done 3 because when I did 1 coat, I was happy with it, but I had a few runs and bumps, and I noticed a few holes in the wall that I missed. So you could see them, and I wasn't happy because obviously it's a feature wall and people are going to look at it the most. So I filled them in with more filler and I sanded them down. The only problem is where I've sanded, where I put a filler on it and sanded, it's obviously smooth. Like I can see there, it's quite smooth, and then other parts, because I've used a roller with a long hair roller, the undercoat primer paint is quite thick and it leaves a bit of a texture because it fills all the cracks and gaps and things as well. But because then I sanded a few little spots, there was a few soft patches where it was just, you could see a circle, a circle, a circle. So then what I did was I got a really gentle sanding pad and I blasted the whole wall again just to get any little lumps and bumps off. But obviously then that means I'm going to paint the whole wall again. So I might have done 2 coats again, because where I made little marks, you could see pink and whatever colour underneath it was. And I didn't really want to see circle patches. So I did it all again, and then all again, and all again. So I'm quite happy with that. It's not perfect. You can see there's some little lumps and bumps where it's been plastered and sanded and filled and stuff. But there's no runs, there's no holes, there's no cracks or major big things in the wall. It's just the normal old house wall now. So I'm quite happy with that. I don't know if you've seen or if you remember, but down there was just a white patch where they painted the skirting board up the wall. Even though it's supposed to be, it looked white on the photos, it wasn't. When you looked in close, all the walls are painted different colours. I then, even though I was real gentle, I did make flicker marks. So I've had to clean all the 3 sockets and the light switch. I made one video saying I was going to tape the light switch, but then it's too much hassle. It probably would have been better actually to just tape them up, because it takes ages to scrape all the paint back off. There is a couple of places here, if I'm really picky, I can see blue flickers. But then if I paint that again, I'm going to have to paint the whole wall, because you'll see it cutting in, and then I'll probably flicker white onto the blue. So that's about as best I can get it, really. And if I scrub that, it'll probably make a mark and stuff, so I don't really want to touch it. You can't see it unless you zoom right in. But I'm quite happy with the cutting in. It's neat, but it's not perfectly straight, like a tape straight. That's because whoever's plastered hasn't done a perfect 90-degree angle in the corner. And on the skirting board, I've done it neat, but it is wavy because the skirting board, they replastered, and I've just followed the best edge I can really. And then I've done about 4 coats of white satin on that wall for the skirting board because of the blue speckles on it. I did only that wall. I did put a bit of effort in it with the sanding it down to get the blue, but I don't want to go too close to the wall because then you'll end up scratching the wall. So I have sanded with the red scrubbing pad that side, and I did knock off most of the lumps and bumps. So I have gone all around the room now. I can't remember how many coats. Was it 3 or maybe 4? There's a bit of pink on this one here, so I've done down here maybe 3 or 4. So that's all done good. Again, it's not. There's a little tiny bump there that I noticed, but no one's going to see that unless you zoom in. And then I've done the door frames before. I can see there's obviously I could have corked that, but you're not going to see unless you zoom in. But before there's all yellow on the wall and stuff, but now it is white and then white. I got a Stanley blade on a scraper, and I've gone around the glass because that's a glass window there. I've gone around the glass. I've neated and I've painted all that. I've done all that. The only thing I haven't done is the hinges. I don't like painting the hinges. I would have scraped them off, but I've left the hinges. I did take the hook off, but now the hook's back on. The door handles came off, but actually this one's broken because you can see it doesn't really open and close that latch bit very well, but I did clean it off. I haven't painted that bit there because that's on that side of the door. So I've only painted this side of the door. When I do the hallway, I'll paint this side and that side. Because I was being careful not to paint on the carpet. So I haven't painted this side of the door. You can probably see there's dirty and stuff. But I have cleaned off the door handles, and that was painted all white. I've now cleaned the screws. I've cleaned off and I polished that with this scrubber. So I painted the door frame, that side, and I haven't done that part, you see. So I've done up to here because that's the inside of the door, that's the outside. You can see a couple of lumps and bumps. I didn't sand it because it's just an old door frame. So that's it. Today I put the bed in. It's a divan, double divan, but it splits in the middle. So there is 2 plastic little clips which hold them together. Not very strong, you could easily pick up the one side. I had to replace the 8 wheels on the bottom. The caster wheels actually, well, they weren't even old, but they broke. The wheels snapped, so I had to buy 8 new wheels, and they came with the, it's like a metal bushing which goes in the bed, and then you pop it in. So I had to take that out, bang that back in, put the new one back in. So it's got 8 new wheels, and I've also put on the floor, because I don't want the wheels marking the carpet, them rubber wheel carpet saver things. So there's them in there, there's 8 of them. And the headboard went back on. The only thing is that little cupboard. Blue is not perfect match to the curtains and the wall, but I think the curtains match the wall pretty well. And that blue matches that pretty well. It's about the centre, but then the plugs are below it. And then the light, I did have it taped up and paper around it, so there's no paint on it. It is spotless, and I've dusted it, cleaned it. So that's the room. All done. So my next job is onto the bathroom.